everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Claudia. I'm a realtor in Chicago and I make videos about home, real estate, and DIY projects. So if that sounds interesting to you, I would love if you would subscribe if you're not already. Today, we're obviously going to be talking about trending paint colors. So every year, at the end of each year, paint companies like Sherwin Williams, Benjamin Moore, Valspar release their color trends that are kind of their predictions for what they think is going to be trending for the following year. So they released their 2023 lineup, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. I have my laptop in front of me, so I'm just going to go through. And if you didn't watch the video I made about this last year, I will link it in the description box and on the screen so you can check out the differences from last year to this year. Specifically, the Benjamin Moore palette that was released was pretty shocking to me compared to last year. All right, but let's just get started with one that I really did think was like right on the money as far as trends go, and that's Sherwin Williams. Sherwin Williams chose Reddened Point as their color of the year for 2023, which I've been seeing this color everywhere, and I actually think it's really spot on. I've been seeing it a lot for kitchen cabinets, for furniture, and I think it's only going to continue to get more popular. The move towards more like earthy tones is really, really in right now, and this reminds me of clay, so it really fits with kind of that earthy vibe that I've been seeing a lot of. If we look at this color on a color wheel, we are in the red/orange family for this one, but in certain lights and in certain photos on the website, it does lean a little bit more pink, which for me, I think could turn some people off from this color. Muted kind of sage green has really had a chokehold on society for the past couple of years, and I sort of have a hunch that this color is going to take the spot that muted sage green has had over the past couple of years. Now let's look at some other colors they have in their palette. I think this is a beautiful, actually really cohesive palette that they put together. I'm not going to talk about every single shade because it's just too many, but I'm going to talk about some that I personally like. Foothills is next, and it is, again, in this sort of like brownish family. And I really like shades like this that are a little bit darker, and I think this is going to pair well with a lot of different colors. Next to Foothills, we have Cool Beige, which is actually another warmer color, so I don't really know why it's called Cool Beige, but I mean, whatever. It's actually really similar on the color wheel, as you can see here, to Foothills. It's just obviously a lot lighter and less saturated. As you can see here, S is the saturation, so we are less saturated and lighter in color. A very similar color family and tone. Next, we have Carnelian, which is a gorgeous, like kind of eggplanty shade, but less purple. It's the darkest shade that they have in the palette, and I've been seeing a lot of shades like this all over Instagram, in paint colors, in furniture. I think this is going to be another one that's going to be really, really popular this year, and I'm personally obsessed with Nikki Kehoe, and on their Instagram recently, I did see a door that was painted like similar to this color, and I just think it looks amazing. I'm obviously more into deeper, moodier shades, but I love this one. Hushed Auburn I want to bring up because it's actually very similar to the color of the year, as you can see when they're next to each other. I also want to quickly point out Urbane Bronze because it was the color of the year 2 years ago, and it was also in last year's palette. So for the past 3 years, this color has really been making its mark, holding its own, and really just standing the test of time, and I can see why it is a gorgeous, timeless color in my opinion. And I honestly don't think that this one's going out of style anytime soon. Okay, the last one I want to talk about in this palette is Toile Red. And I want you to remember this color while we're looking at Benjamin Moore's colors of the year. Okay, so keep this one in your noggin. This one's pretty explanatory. It's a deep brick red, another shade and tone that I think has been really popular over the past couple of years, and one that I just don't see going anywhere anytime soon. I think this entire palette just speaks to the fact that warm tones are so popular right now. Grays and cooler tone shades really had their moment a couple years ago, but I think people are just looking for more warmer, cozier interiors right now, and this entire palette is warm tone shades. All right, now let's jump over to Benjamin Moore's color palette for 2023, which is very different. And I actually think that they're both right. I'm not gonna lie. This is very colorful, and I do think color is making a resurgence. There's always gonna be that like timeless factor of more neutrals like the Sherwin Williams palette, But I don't think that they're wrong in the idea that colors kind of making a comeback. Some of these colors I'm not sold on though. So let's talk about it. Okay, let's start with their color of the year, which is Raspberry Blush. And I could see this being a color that people like, but for full-on color of the year, I'm very shocked. I don't envision this being a color that we're going to be seeing everywhere. Like October Mist was their color last year, and I feel like that was just everywhere. Spot on everywhere. I don't see Raspberry Blush giving the same thing that October Mist gave. I think it's just a little too out there for most people. I also wanted to point out, remember from Sherwin Williams, that this is almost exactly the same hue as Toile Red, but it's more saturated and it's brighter. So I just thought that was interesting because I kind of see where they were going with it, but I think it's just too saturated. I really do. I did want to share this inspo pic that I found on Instagram that I thought was kind of interesting using a similar color. It's not my style, but it could be something to consider if you do love this color but don't want to paint a whole entire room. This one color. Conch Shell is kind of going along with the blushy, orangey, muted color that is having its moment, but it's definitely more peach, which again, I just don't think is everybody's cup of tea. I think people have a hard time with red and pink in home decor specifically, because when it's done wrong, it's really, really wrong. When it's done right, it can be very bold and intriguing, but when it's wrong, it is wrong. I like red when it's either very low saturation or in a small amount in like a hint of an art piece or a coffee table book or like some little home accents. Cinnamon, I'm digging cinnamon. That's kind of like the shade of red that I said that I don't mind seeing in a home. I almost wish they just chose cinnamon as their color of the year instead of Raspberry Blush. I think that would have been more spot on. Next is Wenge, and that is, I think, my favorite color in this palette. It's like, every time you look at it, it's like a different color. When you first look at it, you're like, is that black? Then you're like, is that brown? And then you're like, is that purple? And then you're like, is that gray? It's very hard to discern, and every time you look at it, it's different, which always intrigues me. I think the combo of cinnamon and wenge is so moody and cool. It reminds me of this photo with this backsplash here. I think this tile is just so cool and interesting. If you watch my channel, then you know how deeply I feel about tile. Okay, the tile nerd is alive and well. And now to the only green shade we have in either one of these palettes, which is so fascinating again because of the chokeholds that green has had on humanity. Savannah Green. This looks like mucus. It's gonna be a no from me, dog.
It's a no for me, dog.
Again, I get it. It's just like a little off for me. It was almost correct. It either needed to be a little bit more green or like a little bit less saturated. I would love to hear the opinions on this color. If you like this color green, why? And like not in a mean way, but like genuinely I'm curious. Okay, I now want to talk about the fact that Benjamin Moore has some cool tone shades in their palette, whereas as we know, Sherwin Williams only had warm toned shades. And I appreciate that because not everybody is into warm tones. There's always going to be people who prefer a cool tone shade. So I like that they brought some cool tone friends to the party. Starry Night is kind of giving me IKEA. Not IKEA furniture, like the brand IKEA. And I think this teal color is pretty, but I think it needs to be used in very specific ways to work, which limits its versatility, which is hard for home design because realistically, most people aren't redoing their home with trend cycles. You have things in your home for a long time. So if you use such a bright, bold color in a big way, you're kind of limiting what else you can bring into your space to kind of refresh your space without having to redo the whole thing. So I do think that's a tough one to work with. I saved New Age for the end because there is something a little bit interesting to me about this color. It's so unsaturated. We're at a 4 here, as you can see. So it's almost like it could be any color. But it does have an incredibly slight pinkish undertone. So I do think it could be a nice neutral if you're looking for something neutral, but with a little je ne sais quoi. Okay, finally, let's talk about Valspar. This reminds me so much of Benjamin Moore's palette from last year, actually. Is that shady to say? I'm sorry, Valspar, if it was. Nothing here really, like, particularly stands out to me. They do have Southern Road, which is that same kind of blushy red pink We have some greens and blues in here, which I just don't really think we're going to be seeing a lot of next year. But I do think their main color, ivory brown, is spot on. I feel like a lot of Instagram kitchens I'm seeing right now are using this color on their cabinetry or like a similar kind of tone. So I do expect to see this more in kitchens specifically. Those are the only 3 color palettes I wanted to talk about today, but I do want to hear in the comments what either your favorite palette was or color was that I talked about today. If you would use any of them in your home or if they're all just like an absolute no from you. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.